crank out. Welcome back to Nifty Garage. My name is Sheldon. Today we have a VQ35DE here, and we're gonna do a complete teardown. I'm gonna pull intake manifold off, exhaust manifold, valve covers, heads, crank, pistons, rods, front cover, gallery gaskets, literally everything that builds this as a motor. I'm gonna take it apart. I'm gonna show you how to do it the whole way. All right, so when I'm doing a full teardown on a motor, I'm gonna try to simplify all the pieces that are kind of gonna get in my way. So I'll take the intake manifold off first, then do exhaust manifold, then do motor mounts, get all these hoses out of here. So first things first, we're gonna start with the upper manifold. These are all 10mm bolts that I'm taking off. And then we have the intake manifold off. I'm gonna show you how to take the throttle body off. So the throttle body is held on with a 5mm Allen. Not a, there's 4 of them that hold it on. All right, so the throttle body is off. All right, so now that we have the intake manifold unbolted, there's gonna be a few hoses off of the top of the intake manifold. This is a vacuum line. So you're gonna have 2 coolant lines and a vacuum line up top. Once you have those hoses off, you'll be able to lift the upper manifold straight off. And then you're gonna see the secondary lower manifold that is also held on by 10s. So this has 6 10mm bolts and 2 10mm nuts. And then the lower is actually bolted to the fuel pressure regulator mount right there. So you're gonna wanna take those 2 out as well. And then whenever I take the upper manifold off, I never pull these bolts out of here. I just make sure they're loose. We know that that's freed up. Now we can slide off the PCV hose. Once that PCV hose is off, we can lift the lower intake manifold right off. And then like at this point, it doesn't matter what you take off, I guess. You could go into fuel rails. I'm gonna actually take the headers and the motor mounts off, like I said, just to simplify the motor. Make sure to hold the header when you're pulling that last nut off. All right, since we have the 14 in our hands, we're going to take the motor mount pedestals off as well. This is the farthest point down on the motor, so you're gonna lose the most amount of coolant immediately right here. When we do take the timing cover off, we're still gonna have coolant in the behind the water pump, and when we remove the thermostat, we're still gonna have coolant that's in there. It just gets trapped in the motor basically. Looks like this one has an aftermarket clamp on it. Normally that is a squeeze style. You're gonna see the water pipe that goes from the top of the radiator, comes around, feeds into the bank 1 head, and then over here feeds into the bank 2 head. Maybe a little tough for you to see on this one, but I'll vocalize everything. So there's a harness that goes from the back of the motor. This stays on the motor when you pull your engine harness off of it. It's for your injectors and also your NOx sensor. That's the main plug for your injectors. This sensor is your coolant temp sensor. So this is just kind of like a bridge basically. And then we're gonna see, we may leak a little coolant right here too. The rear water pipe is held on by two 12s. So you're gonna see that water pipe separate there, and then you're gonna come to the front side of the motor. This is the last one for this water pipe. So the timing solenoid up here was hitting up against the bracket for this water pipe. Tearing apart a motor is not a clean job either. You're gonna get oil, you're gonna get coolant, you're gonna get dirt and grime everywhere. I'm just taking the intake manifold gaskets off right now, and we're gonna come over to the other side and take this other water pipe off. There's 112 there, and there's a 10 here on the front. And if your hoses are ever bound up on the pipe that it's sitting on, just kind of rotate it. I really like to use these angled needle nose pliers because you can get a lot of grip on them, and you can also use the angled portion of this as like a prying device. You get back there and you go off of whatever's behind it. Next I'm going to take the power steering bracket off and the AC compressor bracket off. And you may have seen I got my bigger gun out. I don't know why, but these bolts that hold the AC compressor bracket and the power steering bracket, they are always on like crazy strong. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the fuel injector harness, pull the fuel rails out of it, and then pull out the lowest intake manifold. So this harness it clips into the side of the valve covers. And then to remove the injector harness, you just release the clip, pull straight up. I'm going to put that out of our way for now. And then you're going to see a fuel rail and injectors in here. What I like to do is I like to pull these 412s out, and then I'll actually wiggle the injectors and the fuel rail out all in one piece. We can see that that's free. You can just pull up a little bit on the fuel rail because your injectors are connected to that. And then lift straight off. Your injectors stay on there. Whenever you're pulling injectors off, you do need to make sure they're all matching. Nothing was left inside of the intake runner. Also, these four washers are extremely important. If you lose these washers, it messes up the height that the fuel rail actually sits on, and it will put too much pressure on your injectors and cause a leak, and it's just all bad. So make sure you do not lose these 4 washers if you're putting your fuel rail back on. All right, and then we're gonna see a 10mm bolt on the back side of the intake manifold. This is holding on the injector harness and the NOx sensor harness. You're gonna have a little gasket right here between the manifolds. You can leave that there for now. And the lowest manifold has 4 12mm bolts and 4 12mm nuts. They are liking it?
Yeah, dude.
Oh, cool. The VQs, they have this valley right here. It's kind of a bad design in my opinion because of how much stuff gets trapped in here, like water, or if you have an oil leak, You could have a valve cover leak and it'll leak into the top of this motor and your motor will smoke and you won't know where the leak's coming from because it's not running on the outside of the motor until it gets really bad. You can see how much fluid is sitting up here. We washed this motor for the video, so that's why there's water here. But like, I've found birds' nests in here. I've found like dead rats in here. I've found stuffing in here. Anything you can find, like tearing down motors, I've found everything in here. It's kind of cool, kind of gross at the same time. The lowest intake manifold is off. I'm gonna pull the bank 1 or bank 2 solenoid off right here. Then we can pull the valve covers off. And then we should be able to rotate the motor, kind of do some stuff on the bottom. So both of the solenoids are held on by 3 10mm bolts. This also has a gasket in it. Make sure to not lose those if you're replacing them. And when one of these gaskets go bad, this one's kind of decent, but when you see the silver plating showing behind the black, you know that the gasket's kind of compromised. All right, next thing, we're gonna pull the coil packs off. These are held on by 10 mils. The bolts that hold the coil packs on, they are a specific 10. If you put too long of a 10 in here, or one that doesn't have this washer on here, you're really likely to break the valve cover. The thread in here, it's just a threaded insert and it's going into plastic, so they don't need to be super tight. So when you're reinstalling these, just give it a little bit on the ratchet. We're gonna remove the valve covers. These are also a specific bolt. These have a long shoulder on them, so it's basically accounting for the gap that's on the valve cover. When this gets tight, you can totally feel it in your hand. I mean, I've done so many of them, I know exactly when it's tight. You don't have to sit on this with an impact for 5 minutes to make sure it's tight. Watch out, 8 of them calling morning hats now. All right, so we were going to separate the vacuum line that goes from valve cover to valve cover now. Those just pull off. These also go bad very easily. Not easily, I would say. I mean, the motors are old, so if your crossover tube doesn't bend like this and it's super hard and you can't press on it without it cracking, it's more than likely bad. We're going to get a little pry tool in here. This is your valve cover, and this is your valve cover gasket. On DEs, the tube seals are not replaceable. So if you pull your coil pack out and the spark plug tube is full of oil, that means that your spark plug tube seals are bad. If you're seeing oil leak down the side of your block, your valve covers are more than likely bad. And then before I rotate this, I'm gonna pull the knock sensor out of here just so I can get the harness out of here. The knock sensor is held on with a 12 mil. It's not the oil pressure sensor, but this detects so much and it reads all of it just through vibration of the sensor. So there is a torque spec to this. I do not know it off the top of my head. I'm gonna pull the oil filter off and the oil cooler housing off just to drain whatever oil is left in here. And I'm also gonna pull the drain plug out of the oil pan in case there's any oil left. So to remove the oil cooler housing, you just unthread this hollow tube pipe bolt, whatever you want to call it. I don't know the technical name of this, but that's what holds your oil cooler housing on. Also, there is a gasket right here. You'll see, if you ever have a leak, you'll see a little bit of oil sitting right here, and you may think it's your oil filter because the oil filter mounts right here, but you actually have a gasket right here. And those go bad all the time. They're also one of those things that a lot of people mess up. As simple as this is, It doesn't need to be insanely tight. This is an NPT thread. We've posted a few videos about it on the other pages, but this thread is tapered. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera, but it's smaller on this side and it's bigger on this side. That's what an NPT thread is. And if you thread this all the way down until this bottoms out on here, you won't, because this is gonna crack off and then you're gonna be doing an upper pan job. So quite a bit of fluid up here. There's a couple bolts that are sitting up in here, not from us. And yeah, when you're putting a motor on a stand, I try to center it. It's kind of hard to guesstimate where the center point is. But there's a freeze plug back here, and I like to go between the freeze plug and the rear main seal. And I'm gonna rotate away from me because the oil drain is on that side. Isn't it crazy how much coolant stays in it after we drained every pipe off of it? Now that we have the motor turned over, I'm gonna pull the lower pan off. These are held on by 10mm bolts. And when you're removing your pan, don't just sit in one spot and pry super hard, because you're gonna cause a really big dent in the bottom of the pan. And then when you go to reseal your pan, if you don't knock it flat, then you're gonna have another leak. We can see the pickup tube right here. We don't have to worry about that yet. We are going to take the upper oil pan off. These are all held on by 12s. All right, so this is a very important part for all the people that want to do their own gallery gaskets and they've never taken a motor apart before. The first DE that I ever took apart, actually, this was probably 12 years ago. I did not know that there's 2 bolts that go from the inside of the motor that hold the timing cover on. And I got all the bolts that were out in the open out, and I'm prying on it and prying on it and prying on it, and I broke my front timing cover. Fun fact of the day: the only way you're gonna learn is by doing it. Well, watch Nifty and then do it, and then you won't be in my boat.
Yeah, watch Nifty and then do your stuff so that you don't break it.
All right, so we have all the 12 mils out that are holding the upper pan on. Now we can separate that. So I'm gonna tap my flathead into here and then go to the other side and do the same thing. That'll kind of work the pan loose, and then you can pry evenly around the whole thing. Okay. Alright, so you can see that that flathead made its way into the pan to start to relieve. Alright, so this is what your upper pan looks like. This is where oil is pumped in and out through your oil filter housing. So into the oil pump, obviously, sucks in through the pickup tube. The crank is spinning, pressurizes it, blows through, comes in here, goes in your oil filter, goes back through, comes out through here, and then it supplies oil to your motor. This is probably going to be the most inconvenient thing to watch on this video, just because it's between the motor stand. There is a secondary gasket on here that goes between the upper pan and your rear main seal. And there's the same one up in the front of it. You can see it sitting right here. So there's two different sizes. There's a big one and a small one. The big one goes in the back, smaller one goes on the front side. All right, so now we are gonna pull the front cover off of this. It's a 19 millimeter that takes the main crank bolt out, and then you slide your main crank pulley off. Just wiggle back and forth, it'll come off. Like so. And this is your front main seal. Now that we have the crank hub off, we're gonna pull all the 10s and the 17s out of this. Thought that was gonna be a problem. The bigger bolts on here normally need the bigger impact, so we'll take all the 10s out now. All right, so now we have two 12s left on here. Let's get those off and then we can grab the 17s. All right, I'm just double checking, making sure all the bolts are out of here that are needed to be. Pop the front timing cover off now. So there's a little indentation also up here. So I tapped it right there, and then you'll see another spot right here. And then once you see it opening, just work your way around. You don't want it to come off like farther on this side because there are two dowel pins. So you want it to come off as straight as possible. Alright, the front timing cover is off. We put the main crank hub back on, and we're going to rotate the motor over to top dead center while we take the rest of the motor apart. We have our timing marks up there, time mark up there. Everything looks good. I'm going to hold the crank so that it doesn't spin on us. Pull that bolt back out. Now we are done with these, and I'm going to relieve the tensioner out, pull the guide off of this, pull this guide out, pull the water pump out, and then we'll be pretty bare in here. Cam phasers. The reason I want to break those loose before pulling the timing cover, because everything is still in time right now. And if we pull this main chain off and then I hit this with the impact without holding the cam, there's a chance that it could throw it out of balance, throw it out of time. This is a core motor, so it doesn't necessarily matter. I'm just trying to show you the proper way if you guys are taking apart a good motor. So we are gonna remove the tensioner. If you look at the oil pump right here, there is a mark right there, and then you're gonna see the Woodruff key. It actually does not line up with the mark on the oil pump. I'm not sure if it was supposed to line up or if it wasn't supposed to, but every time if it is in time, it will be one tooth exactly over. And now that we have the timing chain tensioner and the timing chain guide, we can remove the timing chain. All right, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove this guide off of here, and what we're going to do with these 12 millimeter bolts is we're going to thread them into the water pump right here, and that is going to help us press the water pump out from the rear cover. Yep, water pump is out. When you're seeing a water pump that is starting to fail, it will look like this. This one probably had a little bit more life in it, but you're gonna see a bunch of corrosion start to build up in here. It just looks kind of grimy in there. And this right here is called your weep hole. When the water pump fails, the the motor is still going to be building coolant pressure. So it will run out of here, and then it won't be able to go through these holes to cycle through the motor. And then it will go through the weep hole, and the weep hole drains between the rear timing cover and the block, this section right here. It'll flow out behind there, and then it'll leak back here. Now that we have the timing chain off, we can pull the front cam phasers off. We had already broke those loose, so we'll pull these completely out now, these bolts. And then this is a little tricky right here. You have to depressurize this tensioner. Like so, felt that come out. And I'm not putting a ton of pressure on this. This is just a little bit of wiggle, a little bit of pressure. This is gonna come out like so. That tensioner is gonna slide up. And then we're able to separate both. And if you're rebuilding your motor and you're at this spot, make sure to mark everything. You're gonna see 2 elongated ones on the inside, and then you're gonna see 2 smaller dots on the inside one. You need to make sure that this one goes to the outside. You have another timing mark right here on the inside of the motor. So you'll see the bump right there. You need to make sure that the smaller dots for the bank 1 side are facing there. And then you can actually mark the chain on the sprocket on the back side of this. And what that does is it just guarantees that when you're putting the motor back together, there's timing marks everywhere on this thing, but it's just a sense of security on how to get these back together perfectly fine. Same thing, we're gonna depressurize the tensioner like that. We're gonna get the pry tool between there, give this a wiggle, and once we feel the chain go on the outside of the tensioner, we can walk the rear one out. These gaskets actually didn't look too bad. It looks like they're on their way out because of how dry they are, but we don't have any splits. Oh wow, did you see that? Just blew oil on my face. Those 10s are out on the bottom. Now we're gonna go up to the head portion. All right, we'll do a little double check here. Looks like all the 10s are out. And now it doesn't look like a VQ anymore. All right, so now what we are going to do is loosen the cam locks. So I'm gonna pull this front cover off first, and I'll show you why. Because I'm gonna set this on our table. For all you people rebuilding stuff, you're gonna set it down like so, right? Where every bolt, everything is staying in the same orientation. And we're gonna make sure that we don't mix any of this stuff up. So we're gonna go straight from here to here. You're gonna set it down in the same orientation that it came off of, because these are all specific for this cam. Now that we have those bridges out, we can raise the cam out of it, just like that. Same thing, We're keeping this in the same orientation of how we're going to set it down. And come and set it down like that. We're not rebuilding this motor. I just wanted to show you how you're supposed to lay all this out if you are rebuilding it. Obviously, if you're putting different cams in it, you're gonna have to reshim everything and do all that. But if you're keeping the stock cams in it, you're just doing like a head gasket job, just make sure to keep everything organized like that. Before I go to the other side, I'm gonna remove this tensioner because this spring keeps wanting to fall out. This is a 5mm Allen holding this on. I think that's the most stressful part of taking a motor apart, if the head bolts strip or not. Really? Because they're so strong. All right, so this actually has a filter, if you see that. This filter slides up into here. Those are also very common to clog. But in order to access that, you literally have to take valve covers off and that front cover off and pull your front cover off. You don't have to take the inside cover off, but very hard to change. See if this one's loose or not. Same thing, we're gonna set this down like so. Before I pull the heads off, I do want to pull the spark plugs out of it. So that's what I'm doing right now. Oh, wow. So tight. It is so tight. All right, time to get my muscles out. All right, now we have all those broken free. We'll be able to yank these head bolts out. Technically, I should probably take the thermostat off first. I don't know how this guy's still made it on here after all that. All right, there is your head gasket, and here is your head. The stressful part is over. None of them broke and none of them stripped. Okay, the head can now come off. There we go. A little bit of weird activity going on in here. Let's pull the pickup tube off. And then on the front right there is your oil pump. Oil pump out. So these are 12 points. I need to go grab those. And then these are those E-Torx ones. It is a E14 E-Torx. And then now we can access our pistons and the rod ends. You want to keep everything kind of located the same. Oop, we dropped our main bearing. Same thing, this one's going forward. Up is forward. This one may be a little difficult to get to. All right, now I'm gonna go from the front, and the reason I'm gonna go from the front is because this is getting close over here and I don't wanna rotate anything just yet. So I'm gonna do this first one, and then I'm gonna have to rotate to get to these two. Same thing, this is forward. So basically, the heads and everything are off of here, so we're able to rotate this, the crank. The bolt was sitting under the block right there, so I couldn't get to it. So I slid the crank hub back on so I can access these bolts. And then the last one will obviously be this one. Dang, we're getting down to the end of this. I kind of enjoyed this. That is forward. Like so. And these are also important to keep them the same way. You're gonna have thrust washers right here. That's the thrust bearing. So we know that that is forward. These ones are numbered. You can see on here there's 1, 2, 3, 4 with the arrows pointing forward, and the second one from the back is the one with the thrust bearings. Now we can slide the crank hub off of here. Like so, and then we'll be able to pull the crank out. Crank out. All right, well, thank you guys so much for watching. That is how you tear down a complete VQ35DE. We got the heads, pistons, rods, crank, timing covers, intake manifolds, valve cover gaskets, valve covers, cams, spark plugs, timing phasers, rear main, front main, water pipes, knock sensors. We went over everything. Thank you so much for watching. We're gonna do HR and VHR next. Have a great day.